What's up, MTG Burgeoning community? What's up, YouTube viewing audience? If you're still part of the latter and wish to join the former, click that subscribe button now. And in so doing, you become eligible for all types of sweet rewards through our channel. Here we have a new delivery system for our Top 10s Day Wednesday lists. And in today's video, we are going to talk about MTG Burgeoning's top 10 favorite cards from Commander Legends. All right, MTG Burgeoning fans, so let's get started on this top 10 list, the top 10 favorite cards from Commander Legends. Coming in and starting off this top 10 at number 10 is Sphinx of the Second Sun. It is a 6 and double blue 6/6 flying Sphinx, and at the beginning of our post-combat main phase, we get an additional beginning phase after this phase, which means that the phase includes the untap, the upkeep, and the draw steps. Now, why this is one of my favorite cards of the set is because this is going to slot in beautifully with an EDH Commander Enchantment Matters deck that's going to feature all 11 of the sanctums / shrines that we have in Magic the Gathering right now. And being able to have those shrines and sanctums trigger again with an additional upkeep, that's going to just make them even more powerful. At 6 and double blue, to get a 6/6 flyer on top of drawing an additional card and untapping everything, I'm very excited to include Sphinx of the Second Sun in that type of commander deck. So now let's take a look at number 9. And here we go with number 9. We have Roguerack, Son of Roga. And this wonderful legendary Kobold Warrior is a 0/1 body for 0 casting cost. That's right, baby. Now we got a 0/1 legendary creature for 0 casting costs. It has first strike, it has menace, it has trample, and it has partner, and it has my attention, and it has my heart, baby. It really does, because I'm planning on including Roguerack, Son of Roga, in a partner build. It's going to be a Boros build. We're going to team Roguerack with a Kiri Line Slinger. And Akiri is a white and a red, and she comes in as a 0/3 with first strike and vigilance, and she gets +1/+0 for each artifact we control. And she also is a partner, so including Roguerack and Akiri will give us 2 commanders, and on turn 1, we have the ability of casting Roguerack and maybe equipping him with an equipment or a quick cheap aura. And if the stars align and everything works out in our favor, we have the ability to cast Roguerack turn 1 and Akiri on turn 1, and then really start going to town with some combat damage on our opponents. Roguerack, Son of Roga, welcome to MTG Burgeoning, baby. All right, and that brings us to number 8, Burgeoning fans, and the 8th card on this list is Monstrous Onslaught. For 3 and 2 green, Monstrous Onslaught deals X damage divided as we choose among any number of target creatures, where X is the greatest power among creatures we control as we cast the spell. Think about it, folks. This spell, this sorcery, Monstrous Onslaught, does something in green that no other card has ever been able to do. We're dealing direct damage spreadable among any number of target creatures. That is not what green does. And for me, I love the fact that now green has the ability to wipe out some creature tokens. That green now has the ability to ping dorks all over the battlefield outside of its typical fight mechanics. So that's why on this list, number 8, Monstrous Onslaught has a spot, because I am so excited to start including this in decks and see what it can do on the battlefield in getting rid of our opponent's creatures. So that's number 8. That leads us to number 7, and we are staying in green, and we are going to talk about the Apex Predator, the Apex Devastator. All right, so number 7, the Apex Devastator. There's just something so simplistically beautiful about this card. I don't know if it's the artwork of it being a Chimera Hydra. I don't know if it's a 10/10 for 10 CMC. I don't know if it's just the fact that we're going to invest 10 mana and net 5 spells, but there's just something beautiful about looking at a card that says Cascade, 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 and then Cascade again. And there's a lot of decks that this can be included. This could be a creature that you could build an entire deck around, perhaps. I mean, we have a lot of green tutors that can tutor an Apex Devastator right to our hand or the top of our library. There's a lot of ways in which to manage the top of our library. And having Apex Devastator there, and we're in green, so tapping 10 to cast Apex Devastator is not going to be a hindrance. It's not some insurmountable amount of mana. It's not going to be inordinately difficult to do that. And then we reap the benefits of 4 spells afterwards. Apex Devastator, baby. We are talking about a primo creature. Thank you, Commander Legends. So let's take a break from green and let's move on to a colorless reprint. Number 6, Roguerack. Of all of the reprints that made it into Commander Legends, there was only one other reprint that elicited this amount of excitement from me aside from Roguerack. Now, Roguerack is an artifact that has not been reprinted very often. In fact, I believe its only other reprinting was as a masterpiece during the Kaladesh and Aether Revolt Invention Masterpiece series. And Roguerack dates back to Tempest. And if you are an MTG Burgeoning fan, you know that Tempest was a set that was out when I first got into Magic. And for many, many moons, I have coveted a copy of Roguerack, but just could not pull the trigger on its hefty price tag. So, the moment that I saw during the preview season for Commander Legends to see Roguerack being reprinted in Commander Legends, I had to pick my chin up off of the floor, folks. I really did. I was just completely blown away and so happy to see Roguerack being reprinted in this set. It only costs 2 to cast. We tap 1, we tap it, we exile any number of cards from our hand face down, and then we put that many cards from the top of our library into our hand. We look at the exile cards and put them on top of our library in any order. If we have any kind of shuffle the library mechanic, like a fetch land, it's pretty much like we're drawing a new set of hands depending on how many cards we had before we activated Roguerack. I was so happy to see this reprinted. Like I said earlier, it was the second most favorable reaction of a reprinted card in this set. More on that to come. But now that we've finished out the bottom 6, let's move on to the top 5 favorite cards from Commander Legends. Number 5 on this list as we look at the top 5 favorite cards from Commander Legends. We're going back to green. We're going back to sorcery. This time it's not going to be 3 and double green, but it's going to be 6 and triple green. We're talking about Reshape the Earth. 6 and 3 green. We search our library for up to 10 land cards and put them onto the battlefield tapped. Now, before we even start talking about all of the different combinations of amazing lands we can have come into play at the same time, let's just look at the math behind this. We invest 9 mana for 10 lands, okay? Now, that's not something that generally happens, particularly in green. If you think back at some of the most common land fetching spells in green, Cultivate, Kodama's Reach, we invest 3 mana for 2 lands. Realms Uncharted, we invest 4 mana for 2 lands. Rampant Growth, we invest 2 mana for 1 land. In the best case scenario, casting Animist's Awakening, we invest X mana and get X lands, but the initial investment also includes 1 green to go with that X mana. So we're not ever getting mana for land balance, it's always behind. But with Reshape the Earth, we're tapping 9 and getting 10. And that is just a ridiculous amount of value. And that's not even taking into account what lands are going to come into play. Are we going to put the Urza lands in play? Well, we just netted 7 colorless mana. Let's throw in an Ancient Tomb and make it 9. Let's throw in a Temple of the False God and make it 11. Let's throw Vesuva in there. Let's get Thespian Stage. Reshape the Earth is a ridiculously powerful card. It's an investment of 9 mana for 10 lands. That cannot be overlooked, and it is surprising to me that this card is not more valuable. I plan on securing as many copies of this card as possible because it's just that powerful. All right, now let's move to number 4 on our list. My number 4 favorite card from Commander Legends is on this list, not for what it can do to Commander, not for what it can do for any of my current EDH decks, because I don't have a deck that this card would currently slot into. This creature is on my top 10 favorite cards because of what it can do for one of my kitchen table decks. And that creature is Krark the Thumbless. 1 in a red. He's a legendary goblin wizard. He's a 2/2. And whenever we cast an instant or sorcery spell, we flip a coin. If we lose the flip, we return that spell to our hand. If we win the flip, we copy that spell, and we may choose new targets for the copy. I have an Is It coin flip deck. It actually did make an appearance on MTG Burgeoning's Kitchen Table series. And to have Krark the Thumbless in the Is It coin flip deck that has a play set of Krark's Thumb and also strengthening the coin flip deck in and of itself, it just made me so happy. I still remember when he was spoiled during preview season. He was one of the very first cards spoiled, and I was just so happy to see Krark the Thumbless and a card. He's going to be 4 copies are going into that Is It coin flip deck, and I can't wait to start flipping some coins with Krark the Thumbless out there. It's kind of ridiculous because he's thumbless, so how is he going to flip coins? But that's just the fun behind it. I'm just so excited to have Krark the Thumbless in that Is It coin flip deck. All right, that's enough about Krark. That's number 4, so let's now move on to number 3. Earlier in this top 10 list, when we were talking about Scroll Rack, I mentioned that there was an additional card that was reprinted in Commander Legends that elicited an even greater response from me than Scroll Rack. Well, and that's number 3 on our list. That's Rings of Brighthearth. This is an artifact that costs 3, and whenever we activate an ability, if it isn't a mana ability, we may pay 2. And if we do, we copy that ability, and we may choose new targets for the copy. I have coveted this card for such a long, long time, but unfortunately, because of its hefty price tag, Unfortunately, because of its hefty price tag, it never came to fruition. I just didn't want to invest that kind of money into this card. But now that it's being reprinted in Commander Legends and its value has landfalled down, it has absolutely cascaded, avalanched straight downward. I cannot wait to take advantage of a card that's less than 10% of its pre-reprint value. I have so many decks I want to put Rings of Brighthearth in. I want to make a commander deck that's featuring Planeswalkers with Rings of Brighthearth. I want to put Rings of Brighthearth in my Kozilek the Great Distortion deck. I also want to put it into my Riku of Two Reflections deck. So excited to see Rings of Brighthearth reprinted in Commander Legends because it just fits in a lot of different decks that I have, and it does so many things that I want to accomplish in my decks. To see it make that preview list, if you could have seen my reaction, I would have been fit to be tied, folks. I would have been fit to be tied. All right, so that's number 3. So we're down to our top 2. Number 2. And my number 2 favorite card from Commander Legends is a white instant called a Chromas Will. For 3 and a white, we get to choose one, but however, if we control a commander as we cast the spell, we may choose both modes. Mode 1, creatures we control gain flying, vigilance, and double strike until end of turn. Mode 2, creatures we control gain lifelink, indestructible, and protection from all colors until end of turn. So mode 1 is definitely on the offensive side, where mode 2 is definitely on the defensive side. However, I maintain that having both modes chosen at the same time is game ending. Can you imagine if we have a commander on the battlefield and we pick both of these modes for 3 and a white? All creatures we control have flying, vigilance, double strike, lifelink, indestructible, protection from all colors. That is game over. And for me personally, this is why it's number 2, my second favorite card of the entire set. It's because this card is going to slot in so many of my commander decks. There is no color I play with more in Commander than white. So a Chromas Will is going to slide right into Kalia the Vast, Saskia the Unyielding. It's going to slide right into Edgar Markov, Athreos, God of Passage. It's going to go right into Feather. It's going to slot into almost all of my 5-color decks, including Scion of the Ur-Dragon, the First Sliver, Kenrith, the Returned King, Morphin Humans, and the First Sliver. A Chromas Will is going to do so much work in so many of my decks that I could not believe that they printed a card like this in white that's only 3 in a white. It pretty much makes every one of your creatures a better Chroma Angel of Wrath. And if you have any history with a Chroma Angel of Wrath, you know how powerful of a creature she is. A Chroma's Will is my number 2 card of Commander Legends. So that leaves us with only one left. So what is my favorite card in Commander Legends? Well, it's a little bit of a cheat because it's not just one card, it's 5 cards, but they're all doing the same thing, and that's going to be the fan lands. Here in Commander Legends, we get the enemy fan lands, first introduced in Battle Bond, where of course we had the allied fan lands. We have the final 5 of the fan lands, and they come into play untapped as long as we have 2 or more opponents. And at this moment, these are the lands that are closest to duplicate the original dual lands, of which are so expensive. So my favorite cards in the top 1 spot of this top 10 list are the enemy fan lands from Commander Legends. Rejuvenated Springs, Spectator Seating, Training Center, Undergrowth Stadium, and Vault of Champions. I like to build my decks from the inside out. I like to invest a great deal of resources in a mana base. I think that having a strong mana base makes you to have a strong deck, and having now all 10 of these fan lands at our disposal, I think that just makes every single EDH deck that much potentially stronger outside of owning any of the original dual lands. And that's it, folks. This is MTG Burgeoning. This is Top 10s Day Wednesday, and in today's video, we took a look at the top 10 cards that are my favorite from Commander Legends. You will go forth, folks, and hopefully you will enjoy your day.